It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in.
All right, everyone. Thank you for coming to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Before we get into this episode, if you haven't already, definitely make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. It helps us go up in the rankings. It also helps us to reach more people. So thank you in advance for your support. Very excited for this interview today. Here with me, I have Daron Campbell, actually out of LA, and we are live in LA. So big moment for the show. Daron, thank you so much for jumping on the show today.
It's my pleasure. Glad to be here.
Definitely. So, Daron, you've closed over $4 billion in transactions, which I think is amazing. Take us back to the beginning. How did you get started in real estate? And what was it about real estate that said to you, you know what, I think this is going to be one of the things that I do to build wealth?
Well, it started initially at UCLA. I majored in economics.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I was intrigued by the fact that money, there were people who knew how to make money disproportionately to the rest of the people out there.
Right.
And, I always heard about, the 1%, the top 1% of all earners out there. And I was always intrigued by that. Why are some people so privileged and or knowledgeable that they get to make money far differently than the 9-to-5 world out there? And so as a result, I switched from pre-med to economics.
Yeah.
Quickly realized I didn't want to be the next doctor in the family. It didn't take long for me to realize that. But money and economics and the way money moves and the way money is made and the way money is multiplied is what, led me down the economics pathway at UCLA. And I was fortunate enough that when I graduated from UCLA, I had a number of job offers. Actually, I had 13 job offers on graduation day.
Wow.
And the most intriguing of those jobs was actually a position with UCLA in the development department. And that's the fundraising department. They call it development. And my job, I got hired, I accepted the job. My job was to research affluent UCLA alums and decide how much the university should ask them to gift the university.
Wow.
So this was interesting. So I sat in a room about as big as your studio here, filled with nothing but dossiers on people who had gone to UCLA, and it talked about what they had, what their net worth was, what their income was. And my job was to research these people. Now, by the way, I had no idea the university was tracking folks like this, but they were.
Yeah.
And so my job was to research people who were affluent and make a recommendation to my boss as to how much maybe they'd be willing to donate. First of all, like the idea of somebody just giving away money by the thousands and hundreds of thousands and even millions blew my mind. I was like,
Right.
Who's got money to just give away to their school, their former school? So anyway, my job was to research these people. And then this common theme kept popping up. A guy named John Anderson gave UCLA $18 million. That's why the Graduate School of Management is called the Anderson School now.
Wow.
A guy named Paul Griffin gave UCLA $5 million. So there's a couple of Griffin buildings at UCLA. So on and on and on, these wealthy people giving these giant gifts to the university. I had to dig in. I had to say, how does this guy have this money to give away? Like, who has $18 million to give away? This common theme kept coming up. Real estate. John Anderson was a wealthy real estate investor. Paul Griffin was a real estate developer. Ralph and Goldie Lewis of Lewis Homes, large real estate developers. And so I found that the wealthiest of the wealthy, even wealthy surgeons or lawyers who'd give money, most of their net worth was derived from their real estate. He might make $500,000 a year doing surgery, being a surgeon, but his net worth was $20 million because he owned 100 pieces of real estate. And so I'm like, okay, this is like, you don't have to hit me in the head with a brick too many times. Real estate is the common denominator for this wealth building class, this group of people. And so I did a little homework. I actually talked to a couple of these major donors, and I went humbly to a few of them. And the answer was pretty common. So I'd go to like John Anderson. I'd say, Mr. Anderson. So we'd host these guys in the chancellor's tent at the football game or whatever, right? And I would go up to a guy like him and I say, Mr. Anderson, I want to grow up to be just like you, except I have no money and my parents can't give me anything. But I want to become a real estate mogul like you. And I remember like it was yesterday. He said, son, what you need to do is get your real estate license. Because number one, that's going to take the ceiling off of your income. You can earn as much as you can hustle for. And number two, you get to see the best deals before anyone else sees them. And you get to buy those deals. I was like, interesting. I lasted out that job 1 year. I quit and went and got my real estate license. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Wow.
That's how I got into the real estate business.
Wow. So a couple things I want to touch on there. So you had your job, right? And it definitely sounds like it was a turning point for you. And you didn't just sit on that information. You're like, you know what? I have access to these people. Let me just ask them. Let me tell them what I want to do. And I mean, what's the worst they could say? Oh, no, I'm not giving you anything. But usually people don't do that. So I think what I want people to take from that is that, you know, if you have information, if you have someone where you work at or wherever who can potentially help you in real estate or whatever you want to do, like, it doesn't hurt to ask and use that network.
It's 100% correct. That's what people should be taking from. That's the initial lesson.
Yeah.
Be the squeaky wheel. Go ahead and ask questions. The Lone Ranger dies alone. The Lone Ranger is useless. Don't be the Lone Ranger. Ask for help. Here's the other thing. The most affluent people I've ever met are also the most open and giving people I've ever met. Talk to any billionaire, talk to anybody worth hundreds of millions of dollars and say, how did you do it? Or what did you do? Or what would you have me do? And they'll stop and they'll tell you exactly what they did because guess what? You don't intimidate them.
Right.
They're not worried about you.
Right.
John Anderson wasn't worried about this 21-year-old black kid after he gives his $18 million to UCLA. I was no threat to him.
Right.
He could tell me all his secrets and not worry about it.
Yeah.
And that's what you find at the top rung of the economic ladder. These people aren't worried about you. You can't put a dent in their fortune. You can't compete. They're not worried about competition.
Right.
Because even if you took all of his money away, he'd be back in 18 months.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So the most knowledgeable people are typically the most generous people.
Right. Love it. So you got your real estate license. What year was this roughly?
I got my license in 92. This
92.
is year number 30 for me.
Amazing. So new real estate agent, like what happened from there? Like how did you grow your business? Like what was it like for you in the early days?
Oh man, the early days were very interesting. First, I made a conscious decision.
Yeah.
I decided I didn't want to sell the average house.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to sit open houses. I didn't want to drive people around and have people tell me they didn't want to buy it because they didn't like the color of the kitchen. I said I wanted to sell the big stuff. So I just decided to go big, and I started in commercial real estate. I joined a firm called Marcus & Millichap, and was the youngest guy there, the only black guy there, but they were the number one sellers of apartment buildings in the United States. I was like, that's where I want to be. And so I was fortunate enough to be hired as an assistant while I was getting my license done. I was this evil guy's assistant for about 4 months.
Yeah.
And, he just gave me this book called The Apartment Directory and said, start calling. And so my job was just to cold call and find leads for him while I was studying to get my license. And so I got my license quickly, but I generated leads for him. He didn't pay me. All he did was pay for my parking. So the funny thing is, I quit my job, and at the time at UCLA, I think I was making, I was paying a little bit higher than most of my other friends who had graduated at UCLA. I was making like $50,000 at UCLA.
Pretty good back then.
That was really good. Most people were getting like $29,000 a year. And I was getting paid $50,000. And I remember when I told my mother that I was quitting my job, and she said, oh, no, why are you quitting your job? I said, I'm going into real estate, Mom. She's like, how much does that pay? I said, nothing. Nothing until you sell something. And she's like, oh, no, don't quit that good job. I was like, I'm doing it, Mom. So I quit my job. I was this guy's assistant. I knew I had to hurry up and get the license because I didn't have time to mess around. I actually had I had a pregnant fiance.
Yeah.
And so baby on the way. We had just moved into a place that was not cheap. And I didn't have a lot of runway to not perform. So I got my license, and I'll tell you, the early days looked like this. 8 hours of cold calling all day, every day. If you had no escrows, you had no deals going, you had nothing to do but prospect all day. So I locked myself in a conference room and call apartment owners. Are you interested in selling? Are you interested in buying? Are you interested in selling? Literally 7, 8 hours a day.
Wow.
And that's kind of the dues. A lot of people see me today and they see, 4.7 billion in closed transactions, and they see what kind of comes with that level of success. They go, oh, hey, I ought to get in that real estate game. Why don't I jump in that real estate? I go, okay, but let me tell you about the dues I had to pay to get to this point. And that's what a lot of people don't see. They see the trappings. They see the cars and houses and, some fancy things here and there.
Yep.
And the glamour shots. But they don't always see the work that really went into it. I wrote 180 offers my first year in the business.
Wow.
Only closed 11 transactions. But the education of that was I got in front of buyers 180 times.
Right.
And so they got to know who I was. I didn't care. Most of their offers were low ball offers. I didn't care. I wanted to meet them. I wanted to write these offers. And that was an education like no other. But that cold calling led to writing 180 offers.
Wow.
Interesting,
wow,
right?
Wow. So take us to that first transaction that you were able to close.
That first transaction, it's kind of comical.
If you can recall.
I can recall it. I can recall it. It was a 12-unit apartment building in Panorama City. And at the time, Panorama City, for people who don't know LA, is it's a suburb in the valley north of Los Angeles. And at the time, it was a gang-infested, drug-infested, really rough area.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a couple of clients who only owned, at the time, I think they only owned 2 apartment buildings, but this one, this is going to trip you out. It was 12 units, and I sold it to them for $240,000. Now, if you can believe those prices, I'll tell you that, just give you some perspective. That same building today is worth, I would say, about $200,000 a unit. So it's worth about $2.4 million. But this was 1992. This was recession. This was vacancies all over the place. This was the toughest neighborhood in the valley.
Yeah.
$20,000 a unit they bought that building for. Anyway, that was the first building. I think my paycheck that I had to split with the evil guy, I think I made $5,600.
Yeah.
That was it. But that was the first one. And the ironic thing is I went on to sell that same pair of buyers somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 buildings.
Wow.
Over the course of our relationship. Now they invest with me in all the things I buy, and it's a great relationship. But that's how it started.
Wow.
Cold calling, and then going out there selling stuff that was cheap and dirty, and
yeah.
But you know what? I found a niche in that what we call bread and butter apartment buildings, meaning just working class communities. There were investors who loved that stuff. And I found them, and here's a good strategy story for you. Every morning, they'll tell you how long ago this was. Every morning at the firm, one of the secretaries would go stand on a step stool and write all the new listings in the company on this whiteboard every morning. So that everybody in the firm knew what the new inventory was.
Right.
Well, I took the cubicle right in front of the whiteboard. And as she's writing what the new deals are, I'm calling my buyers, go, hey, there's a new building just hit the market 5 minutes ago. You want to jump on this? And this kind of speed and urgency got my people's attention. And I became known as the guy who would get them the deal fastest and first. Right. And it was kind of hot because there were a lot of REOs, a lot of foreclosures being sold then. And the people who were buying were jumping fast, right?
Right.
Well, I wanted to be first guy on the phone with the fresh information. So I sat there and watched her write 22 units in North Hollywood. Hey, 22 units in North Hollywood just came on the market 8 minutes ago. It was catchy because who tells you something came on the market 8 minutes ago, right?
Right.
So that was kind of my speed was my angle.
Right.
I certainly didn't know a whole lot about selling apartment buildings.
Right.
But I'm learning on the go. But my little niche was I'm gonna get it to you first.
Right.
And that's kind of how I created a cadre of followers and principals who, for what I lacked in knowledge, I made up for in hustle.
Right.
And they appreciated it. And if I didn't know something, it's like, hey, what's the cap rate? I'm thinking, well, I don't even know what a cap rate is. But I never would BS anybody.
Yeah.
I'd say, you know what? I don't know, but I'll go find out for you. And 8 minutes later, I'm hitting them back going, okay, here's the cap rate.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So never pretended. I was never a used car salesman.
Yeah.
I didn't BS anybody. I would acknowledge my lack of knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and they appreciated that.
Right.
They loved my hustle.
Right. I like that. So a couple things I'm picking up is urgency. Right.
Urgency.
So you talk about, baby on the way. You just quit a job to
Income went to zero.
Right. But you wrote 180 offers that first year. You closed 11 transactions, and you said your niche, and you talked about what your niche was, and you also mentioned speed, right? Like you wanted to be the first one to put a deal out there for the buyers who you accumulated. So I think people really need to understand that, like, you need to have urgency, you need to be fast, and you just need to hustle, and you don't need to know everything. Like I like to tell people, know enough to get to the finish line. You don't need to know everything.
Right.
Know enough, and you can find the rest of the answers. There's information out there. There's people out there who can fill in the gaps for you. So I love that it started off that way.
Well, education is really the most valuable education happens in the field.
Right.
It happens in the streets. I could give you 20 books on how to sell an apartment building or how to be a good salesperson, but you really don't get a feel for that till you get out there and get your head beat in a few times and learn what a hustle really is.
Yeah.
And so experience is the best educator of them all. Something else that was important in what I said was a niche. I found a niche. See, I've owned a couple of brokerages. I've hired and fired probably over 1,000 agents in my career. And what I teach them is that the riches are in the niches. It's like real estate agents who are generalists and try to sell everything all over town usually barely survive. But people who focus on a niche get wealthy. It's a fact. The richest real estate agents I know all could tell you exactly what they specialize in and how they conquered that niche. And I can also show you examples of people in the toughest neighborhoods making 7 figures and people in Beverly Hills and Malibu making 7 figures. And I can also show you people starving in both those same areas.
Right.
But the people who drill down and focus on a thing, that one thing, they can become wealthy at that thing. And I don't care if it's $10 million homes or I've got another story for you, a $400,000 home. Doesn't matter, right? Okay, I'll tell you this.
Let's do it.
At RE/MAX in 2006, was it 2006? Yeah, I think it was in 2006. I was the number 2 RE/MAX agent in the world, right?
Yeah.
Number 2 in the world. California, selling commercial real estate. I'm selling, multi-million-dollar apartment buildings by that time. I go to the awards banquet in Las Vegas, and I first thing I did, they took all of the award winners to the green room to come on stage and get your award. First thing I wanted to do was find out who was number 1, because I was number 2, and I was like, with the volume I did, I should have been number 1 in the world. But number 2 is like, so I'm happy, but I'm a little bit ticked, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as I get to the green room, I go, okay, where's number 1? They're like, that's him over there. Older dude, maybe, early 50s. He, at the time, I'm still in my 30s at the time or whatever. And I go over to this guy because I got to find out what his story is. Real modestly dressed dude. I'm in a tailored suit and the whole thing. He's, in some kind of plaid jacket or whatever. I go, hey, I'm Daron Campbell. Nice to meet you. He goes, I forget what his name was. I go, where are you from? Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I go, what do you sell? He goes, I sell $90,000 houses in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I go, wait. I go, wait. You're number 1 agent out of 110,000 in the world selling $90,000 homes in Alabama? He goes, yep. I go, how many of them did you sell? He goes, 475. I go, what? And then he goes, well, I'll tell you one thing. I go, what's your secret? He goes, nobody buys or sells in this town without going through me. So the point is, he was focused. He's a specialist. That small town was his area, and nobody could touch him in his area.
Yep.
He sold 475 houses and made over $2 million that year. And there you go. I'm selling these big shiny apartment buildings, and he's selling little bitty cracker box houses and out-earned me. So that's an interesting story.
Yeah.
But that's specialists, man.
Absolutely.
Specialists. That's what I can tell everybody. If you're an investor, if you're a realtor, if you get an area of focus, if you get an area of expertise, even if you want to flip houses, I flip a lot of houses. choose an area to focus on so that you know everything about that area.
Right.
Then it's harder for you to make a mistake. It's harder for you to make a bad investment. Why?
Right.
Because you know that neighborhood like the back of your hand. You know a good deal from a bad deal. You know the pitfalls. But go and jump from Torrance, California to Valencia, California. Those are two different planets.
Yep.
Right? They're only 20 miles apart, but those are two totally different places, and you could mess up. You could totally mess up. But when you focus, if all you do is flip homes in Torrance, California, you're going to quickly know every street in Torrance. You're going to quickly know what a good deal is and what a bad deal is. And you're going to know if I buy that for $700,000 and I put 100 in, I can sell it for $1.1 million. And you know that in 5 minutes.
Yep.
If you specialize in it, right? Most people are guessing at this game. They think, okay, well, if I buy that property, I should be able to do that and I should be able to make that. Well, who's got $700,000 to gamble with, right?
Yep.
So when you know what you know, then you can move with confidence.
Definitely. And I like that you mentioned that. It's funny. I hosted a networking event last night, and I was just telling people, they were talking about, oh, you know, wholesaling is cool, buying and holding is cool, flipping is cool. I'm like, that's great, but focus on one thing. Like, you can't be good at everything at once. Like, try to master the first thing, and then you can go to something else. So I like that you mentioned that. And I mean, the proof is in the pudding. You've been doing this for 30 years. And so, like you said, the riches are in the niches, and it's important to have a focus in whatever it is you're doing.
I said a post on Instagram recently, and what I said on the post was, the hardest fortune to make is the first one. Your first fortune is the hardest to make. So when you focus and you drill down and you specialize in one thing, that's your best chance of making your first fortune. Your second, your third, and your fourth fortunes are infinitely easier because you've already got the wherewithal that came with that first one. So like, I know people who are multimillionaires multiple times over.
Right.
Well, they didn't start with multiple things. They started with one. They started with one. I mean, even people like Elon Musk, right? What did he co-found? eBay or which one of those?
PayPal, one of those.
One of those. And he runs 3 publicly traded companies now, but he started with that one, made a fortune, sold the company. Now he can have 20 companies if he wants to.
Yeah.
But nobody starts out with 20 companies. And so nobody should start out with 20 areas of focus.
Right.
Pick one, make your first fortune, and the other ones get easier and easier.
Definitely.
You know?
So 11 transactions that first year. How did your career develop from there? Like, what did it look like the next couple years or so?
Wow, it took off rapidly. That first, the experience I got from writing those 180 offers, and the people I met in the course of writing those 180 offers, and the education I got striking out 169 times, right, was invaluable. And so from that point, I got more intelligent about how to make an offer. I got more skilled at having a buyer and a seller, encouraging them to go to where the offer could be accepted. And my kill ratio went through the roof after that. So I didn't have to write 180 offers to make 11 deals. I could write 15 offers and make 11 deals. And therefore, my rise was kind of mediocre. I'd be out by the third year. I was a senior agent in the firm.
Wow.
And, and jumping into 6 figures, and then, so aimed at my first $500,000 year, then took aim at my first $1 million year, and it grew from there. And so that's the brokerage business spawned my investing business. So focus. I was just a hardcore agent, hustling. Like like John Anderson told me, I could take the ceiling off of my income. You can earn as much as you can hustle for, right? So while my friends are making 30, 40 grand a year, I was suddenly making 250, then 350, then 500, because I got better at what I was doing, and I wasn't in a place that was limiting my ceiling.
Right.
I had no ceiling. That's really where freedom lives. There's nobody can say, number one, nobody can say, Daron, you're fired. Number two, nobody can say, Daron, we're not going to give you a pay raise this year.
Yep.
If I want, I remember I'd write my goals in front of my cubicle. And that first year was, I got to make 100 grand this first year. And then that second year was like, I got to make 250 this year. And the third year, I got to make 350. I mean, it just kept climbing from there, right?
Yeah.
But the cool thing was I put myself in a position, in a career, in a job where no other person could decide how much I'm limited to. And to me, that's the most exciting thing in the world. no ceiling. Let's see how far we can take this thing. You know what I mean? And so now I'm amongst the top 1% of all agents in the country. I've been blessed enough to have had that happen. And so I associate with other real estate agents who are making 7 figures.
Yeah.
Like some making 8 figures.
Wow.
And so I look at people and I go, okay, you complain about your lot in life, but you're not even giving yourself a chance if all you have going for you is that 9 to 5 at Walmart. You don't have any possibilities of becoming free.
Right.
So, some of us, look, I had to have that job, that first job. I needed that paycheck, right? Yeah. And so it's not, we all need to survive. We got to pay the rent. Yeah. Got to pay the car note, right? But if you're limited to that and you have to stay there, you got those other 16 hours in the day where you can find something where there's no limit on what you can earn.
Right.
And instead of sitting in front of the TV for 5 hours a night, go and find your next hustle. If you want to be a real estate agent, but you can't afford to. In commercial real estate, here's an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. In commercial real estate, most people don't close their first deal for the better part of a year. Wow. Well, I didn't have a year, so I had to go faster. But a lot of people, particularly Black people, have trouble getting into commercial real estate because of the long period of time, the learning curve, and the paydays. Mm-hmm. A lot of people that I joined that first firm with were poor little rich kids. Their dad could cover them until they take off in the business.
Right.
Well, I didn't have that luxury, and I found that many of us don't have that privilege either. We don't, we don't have a big inheritance to sit back on, or I asked people I knew people that had trust funds that paid them, $10,000 a month every month forever. Yeah. Well, they could afford to get in a business that doesn't have a paycheck on Friday. Many of us don't have that luxury. So you might have to do both for a period of time. Work that job, get your license, and hustle on the side. I remember a good friend of mine, super successful real estate agent right now. He came to me when I was running the RE/MAX franchise and said, Daron, I can't afford to be in this business. I got to go back and be an engineer again, right? Because he wasn't closing many deals. I said, I tell you what, go back and be an engineer, but don't give up on the real estate business. Come in. Here's a key. Come into the office after work. Come into the office on the weekend. Hit those phones. Keep working your buyers and sellers. And he was like, okay, thanks. Well, now the guy makes $800,000 or $900,000 a year selling real estate. Was able to quit the engineering thing. It only took him a year to find his legs. You know what I mean? But he didn't give up. Right. He didn't give up. He went and made that $60,000 as an engineer so he could pay the rent. But he didn't give up on his dream. Now he's a wealthy man.
Definitely.
Good story, right?
Definitely. And I love how you frame that because it really removes the excuses, right? Mm-hmm. Like everyone may not be able to just jump right in. But to your point, like you can do both. Like if it's real estate, if it's something else, like you can find the time to do something else outside of your job. Even with all the responsibilities, you can find the time. It may just take some sacrifice. It will take sacrifice. It will take discipline, but it's possible. And again, to your point, I really want to emphasize it. There will probably be a point where you can just go to the other thing, whatever that is. If it's real estate investing, real estate agent, flipping, whatever it is, like if you stay down, you can get there and that can be your thing and you can take that to the next level. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
That's exactly right. We have 24 hours in a day. We all got the same 24 hours we've been allocated. What you do with those 24 hours will determine where you end up. And we might start out with difficult circumstances, but anything, I hear excuses all the time. Well, I just don't have time to do that, or it's hard, or I got to get home and cook dinner for the kids, or whatever. All of those are excuses. If you want something badly enough, you will make the sacrifices necessary to get you there. And if you don't, you don't. The best thing about life is it's a perfect meritocracy. If you put in the effort, the rewards will come. And if you don't, they won't. And so any of us blaming anybody or the man or society or culture for our lack of achievement, that's really on us. You really got to look in the mirror because you got to ask yourself, am I doing what it takes to bust out of this cycle? And we all could do something. I don't care what your circumstances. There's something you can do. Some of us are living above our means before it's time, you know? So if you're spending every penny of that paycheck, then you can't cut back so that you can Invest in yourself. If too many of us spend every penny on depreciating things as opposed to appreciating assets. And a lot of people don't own a home, or a lot of people don't invest because they don't have any money left. Well, let's go look around your house and see where that money is. And, the story will be told.
Definitely. So, Daron, I had an opportunity to look into your background, and you definitely have come from humble beginnings. And I think getting to the point where you've gotten today is an inspiration and a relatable story to anyone. And so you mentioned a little while ago, eventually you were able to hit your first $1 million year. So when you think about where you started at, coming here from Chicago and not having much to eventually having $1 million year, like take us to that moment. Like, what did that feel like, considering everything you persevered through and experienced?
It's interesting. I came south side of Chicago. Those are humble beginnings for sure. And then I divorced parents, and so we struggled mightily. But the interesting thing is, as a child, my mom pushed success. She pushed education. She pushed getting good grades. And so I was fortunate enough to be an A student, mostly because I wanted to impress my mom. I didn't want to let her down.
Yeah.
And that kind of upbringing, where she always reminded me and my brother and sister that we were capable of anything. And no matter what life looks like today, you can get anywhere from here if you just put your mind to it and have some work ethic and some discipline. And so I always planned on being a millionaire. Even really, it wasn't even a surprise to me that I was on that trajectory, because this is what I expected of myself, right? I'd be sorely disappointed if I weren't in the top 1% of realtors in the U.S. If I had never started having 7-figure years, if I had never become a significant investor, I would be letting myself down. Not to mention letting my mom down, but myself. I expected this of myself. And I think a lot of times people don't expect enough of themselves. But you're capable of anything you put your mind to, and put some discipline and some work ethic behind it. It's not always the most talented or the smartest that wins. It's the most disciplined and consistent one that typically wins. And when you learn that, you can check yourself in the mirror an awful lot. You go, okay, am I putting in the effort? We are blessed enough to live in a place where you could go from zero to wealthy in a relatively short period of time. There's some places, and people don't always know this, but there's some places where people live in caste systems, and it's not a free, open society where you go out and start something, start a business, launch a business, do something where there's no ceiling on the income. We're blessed enough to have that opportunity. So none of us can really look in the mirror and say, well, I really never had a chance. Well, you were born in a place where it's all about the chance. Look at how many immigrants pop over here and within 10 years are wealthy people. Why? Because they see the contrast from where they came from, where there were no chances, and they were lucky enough to land here, and they go, oh my God, are you kidding me? All I have to do is work hard, and I can grow and grow and grow and open a business or get a license or get a degree, and there's nobody stopping me from doing it. I'm the only one who could stop me from making that happen. And a lot of us don't appreciate the opportunity that's sitting in front of us, while immigrants will pop in here and be worth more than you 5 years after they get here with nothing. Many of my clients are immigrants, or their parents were immigrants, and they have amassed real estate fortunes from zero. And they got stories. Well, I used to have to, I was a gardener, and then I had to take a second job, and then we got together with the relatives, and we all bought our first home or our first investment. They team up. They do whatever they got to do to get ahead. And I think a lot of us should take a lesson from that.
Are you looking for a community of like-minded individuals and access to experts in real estate? Yeah. Are you interested in real estate but need more support and guidance?
You know who it is?
The Black Real Estate Dialogue presents the Real Estate Investing Community. No matter how much or how little real estate experience you have, we've created a community for you because your perspective is important. All right, tell me, where's the #1 place where you can do Q&A with experienced guest speakers 2 times per month? How about unlimited access to past guest speakers' recordings? What about a private Slack channel to engage in daily discussion with everybody in the community to share resources and support each other? Head on over to blackrealestatedialogue.com. That's blackrealestatedialogue.com. It's the real estate investing community presented by the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Come join us today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of the other themes you see in your clients who have grown real estate portfolios? Like what are some themes that you think people can take in addition to just, teaming up, working hard? Is there anything else?
Yeah. One of the big lessons that I use when I invest is you make your money when you buy. Mm-hmm. You make your money on the buy. So what does that mean? That means you want to buy, when you purchase something, you want to know for a fact that you've bought it at such a level that you can't lose. You know what I mean? It's a can't miss opportunity. There's enough opportunities out there where you can find a seller who's selling for reasons other than greed. Okay, so like say you wanna own a home, you wanna buy your first home. Well, your objective shouldn't be to just have your name on the title of a home. Your objective should be, I wanna buy that home in such a fashion that anytime I want to refi it or sell it or whatever, there's money being made. The day I close, I know we've made money. And so a big lesson for people to know is you make your money when you buy. So between finding an opportunity where there's a seller who's motivated for reasons other than greed to sell, and then being a strong negotiator, being willing to walk away if the price isn't the price you wanted, that's how you find your way to the better deals. I tell people, I don't buy real estate, I buy situations. So, and the 4 Ds are my favorite situations: death, distress, divorce, and dissolution of partnerships. I look for the 4 Ds because those are people who are selling for reasons other than money, reasons other than greed. They need to sell. All those people need to sell. That's who I want to buy from. So then I use my purchasing power, cash or speed, to buy an even further discount. So somebody inherited grandma's house. They don't want to live in grandma's house. They got 3 siblings who they got to split the money with, but the money's all in that house, right? For them, it's the most money they'll ever see in their lives when this thing sells. So grandma's house might be worth $500,000, but none of them can get access to the money until the house sells, right? Well, the house is worth $500,000. I know that they're kind of, you try to learn the backstory so you can see where the opportunities are.
Yeah.
They want the $500,000. They can't get their hands on any money until that house sells. So if a guy shows up willing to pay them $400,000, but will close it next Friday, and they all will have their money by next Friday, they go, where do I sign? Yeah. And then I just bought myself a $100,000 discount. My speed, my ability to understand the situation.
Right.
So now I just bought a $500,000 house for $400,000 that I'm then going to fix up and make worth $700,000.
Yep.
You see, that's where the money's made, right?
Yep.
Not in reverse. I don't buy a house and then go, now what do I do to make this worth more? No, it's worth more the day I bought it.
Right.
There you go.
Love it. Love it. So I know you grew your real estate business and then you got into some investing. So can you talk about just the development of that part of your business?
Well, I started becoming one of the more active sellers of apartment buildings in Los Angeles. I was one of the top sellers of apartment buildings. And I'm helping people buy investments. I'm watching them invest. I'm watching them create cash flow. I'm watching them create freedom, because these apartment buildings were, you're buying them. I'm watching them add value by fixing them up. I'm watching them add value by raising rents. I'm watching rents in Los Angeles jump more than 10% per year for like 16 straight years.
Wow.
So all these people they're creating income, cash flow, passive, mostly passive income. And so I go, I got to get in this game. I'm not just going to be here helping people create this wealth. I need to get in on the game.
Right.
So I bought 2 ugly little apartment buildings in Van Nuys. And it was interesting because I wasn't sitting on a whole lot of money, but I gotta find my way into this arena, So not having a ton of money, I was still relatively new in the business, but I knew I need to own apartment buildings. I I met a guy, I cold called a guy who wanted to sell his 2 very ugly, rundown apartment buildings because he wanted to leave the country and go on some mission, do some mission work. And so his main thing for me was he's like, you can list these and sell them, but I need to sell them fast.
Yeah.
Like I'm ready to leave like in 2 weeks or something crazy like that. And so I go home that night and I'm thinking, how am I going to sell these 2 beat up, rundown, crappy apartment buildings? And I thought, maybe he'll sell them to me. And then I thought, well, I don't have the money to buy them, but there's this thing called seller carry. And I went to him the next morning after not sleeping all night thinking about how I could do this. I go, I'll tell you what, I know how we could sell these buildings fast. We could close in 24 hours if you want to. I go, but it involves you carrying the note. I'll buy both buildings if you'll carry the loan for me. And he goes, is that legal? I go, it's completely legal. You can, as the seller, can be the bank, and I'll make payments to you every month. And then you let me do that for 1 year, and then I'll refinance those buildings and pay you completely. He goes, you sure that's legal? I go, I'm sure it's legal. And I go, and incidentally, I don't really have a down payment, but I'll pay all the closing costs. And you carry 100% financing. He's like, okay, let's do it. So this guy carried 100% financing on 2 apartment buildings. I made the deal, bought the 2 buildings from him, fixed the 2 buildings up with the whatever excess rent there was, evicted all the terrible. 1 unit had 16 people living in it.
Wow.
I had to evict some folks. I had plumbing breaks I had to deal with. There's all kind of, because he never maintained the buildings. They were terrible.
Yeah.
But I got 2 apartment buildings with 0 down.
Wow.
He carried the note, interest only payments for 1 year. By the time the 1 year was up, I had painted the buildings, put new tenants in, turned a few of the units over, and refinanced all his money out, paid him off, and still had somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 in equity in those buildings. That's my first acquisition.
Wow. How many units were those in total?
A 12 unit and a 4 unit.
Wow. So you made a big splash.
Big splash. Big splash. And people didn't even know you could do that. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it was like
How'd you find that out?
You know, I was a student of the game. So
Yeah.
I would sit in the office. I stayed in the office till late at night. And I'd go through the comps. There was a big binder, bunch of big binders, that would detail every transaction that happened in the market. So I would flip through that book and just read about the transactions. And once in a long while, I'd see, because they would tell you what kind of financing, Bank of America or Wells Fargo, seller financed. I go, wait a minute, what's that? So I dug into that and found out that the seller could actually carry the loan.
Yeah.
Then there was another little twist called all-inclusive trust deed, which is where the seller has a loan, but he wraps a loan around that loan and gives it to you. And so you could take over that guy's debt, essentially, and basically without the bank's permission. And so that's how I bought my second deal on an all-inclusive trust deed. And that seller wanted to go fast also. So we created this. Now, I'll tell you this. The banks don't love all-inclusive trust deeds because their borrower just handed the loan off to another borrower. And I never even filled out an application or anything. However, what you'll find is that as long as they're getting their payment every month, they don't trip, right?
Yeah.
If you stop paying them, they're going to come after him and you. But as long as they're getting their money, banks don't really care. They really don't want trouble. Banks don't like foreclosing on properties, contrary to what people believe.
Mm-hmm.
Banks, if they're getting their payments, no problem. So that's how I did my second transaction. I had the seller do an all-inclusive trust deed, and I took over that building, fixed it up, created some equity, paid that loan off, paid that seller off, keep it moving. So that's how I started investing.
Yeah.
So then flash forward, I'd done 11, 12 transactions, but I still didn't have, and I was doing well, but I still didn't have the capital to do some of the big deals that I saw going across the board every morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
That board, we would list things like 100 units, 80 units, 250 units. And I was trying to figure out, well, how do I buy those? I want to get in the big leagues, right? I've never thought small. I've always thought maybe beyond my my limitations. But I was thinking, how do I buy those? So in my travels, talking to all my clients or whatever, I'd pitch them a building. And one of my clients said, well, Daron, I don't want to buy any more buildings. But if you buy another one, I'll invest with you. I was like, wait a minute. I'm on to something here. You mean if I buy the building and I'm in control, you'd invest money in the building? He goes, yeah, I trust you. You're the smartest apartment guy I've ever met. If you buy something else that I don't have to manage, I'll invest with you. So I pulled a few more of my clients. I was like, so George, if I bought a 50-unit building, this building, for instance, and I invited you to invest with me, would you be interested? Everyone I polled said absolutely yes. Wow. One, because they trusted what? My expertise and my knowledge. This is what I do 24/7. I happen to be the best realtor any of them knew. So I'm saying I'm going to go buy something. If you want to ride along, there's nothing for you to do but put money in and get returns. They all said yes. That's when my syndication business was born. And so suddenly I started buying bigger stuff and inviting clients and people to invest with me. And lo and behold, they did it. We did well. At one point, over 800 units was what we managed and owned. And anyway, the point is that's how the larger investing business was born.
Love it. Love it. So for those who may not be familiar with what a syndication is, can you give like a basic explanation?
Yeah, the basic explanation is a syndication is a collaboration, a group of people getting together, pooling their capital to buy something. And it's led by the sponsor, who essentially is or syndicator. Sponsor, syndicator, you use those terms interchangeably. And that's usually the person or persons, it could be more than one person, who have agreed to manage the asset, manage the partnership, manage the money, and kind of guide the partnership.
Got it. So one thing I'm picking up is that everything kind of grew from the real estate agent business. So from there, you of course build a list of buyers, build a list of sellers, and also expertise in finding deals and turning them around fast, which then you're able to parlay into your own deals. And using like the books and staying in the office and finding out how these deals are getting closed, you're able to creatively finance your first two deals with pretty much nothing out of your pocket.
Yep.
And then through a conversation, you figure out, hey, all these people I'm networking with, this network I'm building, let me see if they actually be willing to invest with me. And so it seems like everything has been building on top of each other to get to the syndication business. So I think that's incredible.
It's all related. If you notice, one thing simply led to the next thing.
Exactly.
So I wasn't bouncing left and right, different industry, different. It's all in the same lane. It's just how do I graduate inside of this real estate realm? And I'm always looking for the next thing. How do we graduate? How do I get bigger? How do I get better? And if you're constantly in growth mode, constantly like, how do I get better tomorrow than I was today? You'll start to see these things. They'll find you. You know what I mean? If you're being alert and being aware, opportunities will find you. If you're consciously saying to yourself, I want to grow, I want to get bigger, opportunities will identify themselves. Because it's amazing. Not everybody's trying to grow. Not everybody out there is trying to grow. You tend to be the exception to the rule rather than the rule if you're looking to get better. Literally get better every day. Get stronger, get smarter, get better every day. I find less than 10% of the people out there looking to do that. But growth is always on my mind. How do we take what we got now and double it? How do we get better? How do we get stronger? How do we have a better year next year? That's why, every year has gotten better.
Yeah.
30 years straight.
Definitely. 30 years in, what keeps you going and hungry every day? Because I still see that passion, that desire that I'm sure was there in 92 and is still there now. What keeps you going?
It might even be stronger now than it was in 92. One of the things that keeps it going is the sky is the absolute limit. I mean, I haven't achieved nearly all that I would like to achieve. There's so much more to go. I mean, look around you. There's somebody smarter, richer, better, bigger. And if they could do it, then I can do it. And the other thing that keeps me going is, and this is important, I always tell people, the minute I stop having fun doing this, I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
But there's never been 2 days alike. I've never been bored for not 10 seconds. And there's still more to be gotten. There's still more to achieve. It never goes away. And I'm always just looking for more, And again, I don't take as many vacations as I should because I'm having too much fun working. And it pays. It pays well. It pays off. And I'm trying to build a legacy. I want my kids to play the same game and continue to grow the family's, wealth or what have you. So, I'm entertained. I'm completely entertained.
Definitely. And there's a awesome story. I was looking into your background, and I believe your mother was working at a dry cleaners, and you eventually purchased that dry cleaners, and she became the owner of it. Can you talk to us more about that?
Yeah, that's kind of my proudest moment, I guess. My mom, when we first moved to California, it was just after the divorce. Their divorce happened, and my dad refused to pay child support and alimony. I mean, these days you go to jail if you don't pay your child support. He just didn't pay. So we struggled. The second day we were in California, my mom had to find a job, and she didn't have a college degree or any of that. She had quit all that to help him get his degree. But anyway, long story short, she had to work. She found a job as a counter clerk in a dry cleaners in the Pacific Palisades. And so every morning, 7 a.m., she had to drive. We were in Baldwin Hills, and she had to drive to the Palisades. And she went from the counter clerk to the assistant manager a couple of years later, to the manager a few years later, to the person actually running the entire business for the old guy that owned it. And I finished high school at Dorsey High. I went to UCLA. I graduated. I got into the real estate business. And a few years into the business, I was doing very, very well. And the owner of the dry cleaners, he's an older gentleman, he passed away. And he didn't have any kids, but he had a bunch of relatives in Texas. And they flew out here to liquidate his estate or whatever. And I approached them and said, "What are you going to do with the cleaners?" And he said, "Well, we're going to sell it." And I go, "Well, then I'm going to buy it." And I bought that cleaners from them and handed my mom the keys and said, "You're the new owner." And that's literally the proudest moment of my life. So I got to say, because all while we struggled, from struggling to pay rent to struggling for just basic survival during those early years. And I thought to myself, I'm going to win at this money game, and I'm going to take care of that lady right there. And so fortunately, before she passed away, she passed away about 7 years ago, but she owned that cleaners for, 15 years or so. Wow. And I handed her the keys to her first Mercedes, and, I thought she was my reason. So yeah. I'm proud of that.
Definitely. And, I think that's just amazing because, a lot of people talk about, where they started in life and, why they can't do certain things. But we're looking at an example right now of what you can do if you believe in yourself, if you work hard and you just are relentless with what you want to do. You can not only help yourself, you can help your family, you can help your children, you can help your community. Yeah. So, I really want people to know that.
Well, and the thing is, a lot of people get stuck because they don't know the how. Right. They don't know how do you get from living in a tough neighborhood to becoming a millionaire? How? I don't know how you do that. Well, I think forget about the how. Just know the what. Here's what I want to become in life. Here's how I want to live. Know that and keep that on your brain. And I think your brain will identify opportunities to take the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And don't get caught up in the how. Just figure out the what and start working. Start doing something. And something will lead you to something else. And that's look. I knew I wanted to become a wealthy person one day, right? I took that UCLA job because I thought this is going to expose me to some things and some people I don't normally get exposed to. So I didn't know I'd end up being a real estate investor one day. I just get into that job and I'm digging into that job. I'm doing a very good job at that job. And then that job shows me all these people who are where I want to be. And then suddenly I get access to these people. And I get to ask these people, how did they do it? And then some wise person, or several wise people, said, look, here's where you can start. Here's where people with nothing can start. Go get a license. Start selling real estate. Take the limits off your income and start investing in it. There was my roadmap. But if I weren't hunting, I wouldn't have found anybody who could put me on the right road. See, a lot of people sit back and wait for the lottery to hit. Well, that's not hunting. That's not hustling. That's not working towards anything. You don't know the how. The path, if you'd asked me at 15 years old, what will be your path to great success, Daron? I wouldn't have told you through UCLA, through the development department at UCLA, through Marcus and Millichap, through owning Remax, through, I wouldn't have been able to describe that route. So the how is a waste of time. Just get busy getting busy and working toward it and know what it is where you're going. I know I want to get to New York City. Well, let me start the journey, and I know the direction I want to head. I don't know what those roads look like on the way. I just know that's where I want to end up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't always know the how. Stop trying to know everything. People want to know the whole picture before they set out on the journey. Guess what? You adjust along the way. And so that's what I recommend.
Definitely. So Daron, talk to us about Globl Red, the mission of the company, your role there, and just some of the things y'all are doing. You know, I was checking it out, and I would love to hear some more. I'd love for the audience to learn more about it.
Well, Globl Red, Red stands for real estate and development. So Globl Red is a firm, a private real estate firm founded by Kofi Narte, and just 2 years ago. And he had this vision of starting a private real estate firm. It was a little more full service than just a real estate brokerage.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to do something bigger for the client, something more significant for the client. And he got introduced to me by a lady named Rhonda, who was also at Compass. I just met her at a party one day.
Yeah.
And she heard about who I was and knew a little bit about me. And when she talked to him and he told her he was going to start a new firm, she's like, you got to meet this guy, Daron Campbell, because what you want to do, he does. And so we sat down, he and I, and we clicked immediately. And he represents a lot of athletes and entertainers in the purchase of their homes. And he and I met, and he learned that I represent lots of investors in the purchase of their investment property. And so he said, look, I think you should help launch this firm with me. This is what I want to do. This is my vision. And you should kind of lead up the investment arm. So I came on board as managing partner and chief investment officer. And so I run the investment division of the company. And what we do is we offer people who we've sold homes to the opportunity to invest with us in things that I identify for us to acquire. And it has worked phenomenally well so far. And it's going exactly according to plan. And after 2 years, we've done a lot. We acquired almost $30 million worth of property last year.
Wow!
And hope to double that in the next year or so. And it's going well. It's going really well.
Definitely. And are these like investment properties? Are you flipping some? Like, what's the strategy?
Right now, we are in the process of doing 3 significant fix and flips on houses. We're looking at apartment acquisition opportunities, but the current ones right now are upscale fix and flips. We have one in South Pasadena that's actually going to hit the market next week.
Nice.
We have one in Brentwood on Sunset Boulevard that's going to hit the streets in probably August. And then we have one in Beverly Hills, 9,000 square foot house on a major corner on a half-acre lot with a Olympic pool and a tennis court. And we're going to do a major renovation on that. And that's kind of our first wave of investments. And we've got partners and investors with us. And hopefully we're just going to grow from there.
Definitely. So, Daron, what advice would you give to someone who aspires to be in the real estate business? So whether it be as an investor, as a flipper, as an agent, just anything within that space. Like, what are some tips you would give to somebody they want to do it and they're just looking to get started? What should they do?
Well, I think getting the real estate license is a very good baseline thing to do, because there's an education that comes with it. The most important education will happen out in the street, in the field, but the basic education that you have to go through to get a real estate license is a real good foundation. It also, at the end of it, you get that license, which I call it a license to print money, because you suddenly get to go and sell real estate and make disproportionate money versus your friends who are punching a clock somewhere. So I tell most people, go get your license. And you can keep your day job, get your license. You can do it online now. You can do it. You can go to a school and sit in a classroom if you want to. There's no excuse. And for the kind of money you can make as a licensed real estate agent, the license is disproportionately easy to get. And I mean, we make more than doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs, and the licenses, you can get it in a matter of weeks, as opposed to having to go to law school or med school or whatever. So it's simple. It's fairly simple to do. Anybody over 18 years old can do it. I start like that. A lot of people want to jump right into like the wholesaling game and things like that. You just got to be careful, because knowledge is the expressway.
Mm-hmm.
Becoming knowledgeable. Like, you could jump into the wholesaling business, but if your knowledge is very limited, your ability to complete those wholesaling deals is going to be limited. So unless you get a strong education on it by someone who's probably doing it, maybe you go an apprentice for a wholesaler. Maybe that's a good way to get an education. But everything should start with knowledge. Learn about whatever it is you think you want to do, whether it's mortgage brokerage or wholesaling or fix and flip or investment real estate. Get some knowledge from somewhere. You don't just wake up as a real estate expert one day. You don't just wake up and go, okay, I'm shifting into real estate and I'll be successful by next week. That's not how it works.
Right.
Anything worth having is worth learning, being educated about, and then practicing at it. Kobe was in the gym, at 4 a.m. He's shooting around 4 hours before the game. He practiced his craft, every day, and was obsessed with becoming the best. Sprinkle a little bit of that into what it is you want to do, and it'll evolve. Progress will be made. The best thing in life is that if you put in effort, progress is inevitable. You can't not make progress if you put in the work. So put in the work. A lot of people want a gift to fall out of the sky. That's not how success works.
Yeah. Definitely. What are your thoughts on the market currently? I mean, people talking about interest rates and prices and all. I'm sure you hear this stuff.
Yeah.
All day, every day. What are your thoughts?
Well, what people have to remember is the markets are cyclical. This is not shocking. This should not be shocking to anyone. Markets go up and they come down. And as you can see, it's real obvious in this day and age that you see that there are influences that make those markets move. The federal government is making this market change on purpose. We saw it coming. I've been telling people for months. They're going to stick a pin in this bubble that is this inflation, because we printed and gave away all that cheap money during COVID, and it then created this inflationary bubble, and the feds had to put the brakes on. The dollar is getting too cheap, the things are going, a little wild. And they said, we got to slow this thing down. We got to calm it down. How do you calm it down? You jack up the interest rates. There's more coming, by the way. July 27th, they're going to do it again. And maybe 4 more times before the year's over. They're going to do it again. Here's what I tell people. There's money to be made no matter what the market is doing. As a matter of fact, the biggest money that'll be made will be because of what the market is doing. So the fact that they change a marketplace, they change the interest rates, they lower the demand, and then effectively start lowering prices, and there's going to be some blood in the streets. Well, guess who's going to make millions upon millions of dollars? The people who take advantage of the opportunities that get created because of a recession, right? When is the most money made? The most money is made when people aren't sure of things, right? So this last 13 years, everyone's been sure of everything. Everybody was a genius. You buy that house, it goes up $100,000 in value, you didn't have to do anything, right? Well, everybody was a genius this last 13 years. Now the game's about to change. Market's about to level off, might even come down a little bit. There's going to be a lack of sureness out there, which is going to cause some people to make some expensive mistakes. And the most savvy people are going to focus on where those opportunities might be. You heard about my 4Ds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Distress, divorce, death, and dissolution of partnerships. There's going to be a whole lot of that during this downturn. And the people that are the smartest are going to charge in and take advantage of discounted prices. And they're going to end up buying real estate for 60 cents on the dollar. Right now, our next phase, I predict, my next 2 years will be consumed with buying foreclosures, because there's going to be a ton of them. So if you look at things the right way, you'll see the opportunity to create massive wealth during odd times like this. So I look at it as an opportunity. And if you do your homework, you can too.
Definitely. Do you think, with people being like afraid of, oh, interest rates, this and that, do you think it'll create more opportunity for those who are willing to buy and can find good deals in spite of whatever the interest rates are?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're not going to see wealthy real estate investors slow down. They're going to speed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. The higher interest rates is going to lower demand because it's going to knock a lot of people out of the qualified category. And so prices will retreat. And so you'll be able to buy things cheaper than you bought them like 2 years ago. That apartment building might have cost you $2 million. Now you might be able to buy it for $1.5 million, right? So now things are going on. The world's about to go on sale, and the wealthiest people are going to go shopping. And the rest of the people are going to like freeze up. Oh my God, the sky is falling. Let me get out. Let me sell. Hurry up. And a lot of people don't want to give back the margins they've made, right? They don't want to see that equity disappear. So they're going to be like, sell it, get me out. And then people are going to be like, I'll take it. It's going to be a veritable sale going on. And then the other thing is this. During unsure times like this, when banks are making it tougher for people to get mortgages, interest rates are going to cross. They're going to be at 7% by the end of the year. And that's going to change a whole lot of people's ability to buy. So then what does that create? More renters. What's the best thing to be if there's more renters? Landlord. So savvy people are going to be out buying units, buying more and more and more apartment complexes, buying more and more houses to rent out. And look at the little windows that the market creates. So let me give you guys a little tip. LA, for instance, California, just made it very, very, very easy to turn your garage into an ADU, an additional dwelling unit, to put an additional unit in your backyard, build an additional unit for income purposes. So now you can buy a regular house that you might be able to get at a discount this next 2 years, and then you could turn the garage into a studio that you can rent out, and you can put another unit in the back that you can rent out. Now, suddenly, this house that had one potential rent can have 3 potential rents. And what do you think savvy investors are going to do? They're going to be taking advantage of that like crazy. And there's going to be more renters in the pool, which gives investors more opportunity to rent to more people. And if the city is saying, and the state is saying, hey, we're going to allow you to have more density and go ahead and build more on your lot. Now, that never happened in our lifetime. You've never heard the state of California going, it's okay, put more units on that property. Now they have, because there's still a housing shortage. That's a window. That's a wealth building window. Anybody listening? There's a wealthy tip right there. If you can take a house and the city or the state you live in says, we got no problem with you turning that garage into an apartment. Now you got a house and an apartment. And then some places are saying, you know what? You could put up to 4 units on where a single family used to be. That is an invitation to grow your wealth. Take advantage. Opportunities. One window closes, another one opens. People, savvy investors are looking at this next marketplace as a huge opportunity to build wealth.
Love it. So, I'm just thinking about the full story, Daron. So, starting out as a kid, not having much and family struggling, and you have this opportunity. You're able to go to UCLA, and then you get the job, and you get exposed. You get exposed to wealthy people who were willing to share with you like what you should do if you want to get into real estate. You took the advice, you took the action, 180 calls in the first year, 11 transactions. You figured out how to be successful in that business. You figured out how to creatively get into your first deals without having as much capital as you would like. Continue to buy more deals, got into flipping, got into syndication, and you've created such a successful career. So I think this has been super inspirational interview, and I'd love to hear from you. What does the future look like? What are some things you want to do in the next couple of years?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of opportunity over these next few years. I think, there's a lot of fallout yet to be realized from COVID, from moratoriums, from forbearance on loans. A lot of people will have put themselves in a difficult position. When you see that, there's going to be opportunity. So personally, what do I see for the future? I'm going to buy 100 houses over the next 36 months. And we're going to renovate them and either resell them or lease them out. But I like to buy things. I like to add value to those things and then see what the market is offering from that point. If it's a an absolute huge opportunity to make a giant return, we'll sell. If it's an opportunity to have a really strong rental, build a really strong rental portfolio, we'll rent them out. But the point is, it's the opportunity. Don't sleep on the opportunity. So I'm aggressive. I plan to.
I could tell.
I literally plan to buy 2 or 3 houses a month over the next couple of years, and with investors and people who want to come along for the ride. But that's what I plan to do, and just continue to grow from there. You know, it's been 30 years, and no cycle has been identical to the last. So a new set of opportunities will present themselves. I give you another one. Across the entire country, we have designated what they call opportunity zones and transit zones. Now, what does that mean? Since there's a shortage of housing in many of the big cities, they've created these zones where they'll give you additional density. So I predict, well, I've been studying this. Again, I'm a voracious reader. What they'll let you do, I just did a transaction recently. Take a single family home in Hollywood, and because that home is near transit lines and near public transportation, et cetera, you could take what is in that house sitting there, you could tear that house down and put back 8 units. One house turns into 8 units. And since it's near all the public corridors, they allow you that extra density. Mm-hmm. Well, all I have to do is pay for this one house and put back basically 8 townhomes, and you've created millions of dollars in wealth just because of the gift that the government is giving you called density, called bonus density. So I plan to get much more involved in these zones and take things that I can buy at today's number and turn into that times 8 or 10 or 20. And it's an opportunity. And we have opportunity zones in all 50 states. So you can't say that there's no opportunity to create wealth. It's out there. You just got to do your homework.
Love it. And Daron, where can people find you, keep up with what you have going on?
Oh, I'd love that. I'm on Instagram. It's just Daron Campbell. That's DaronCampbell. You can go to DaronCampbell.com and see a lot about what we're doing. And those are probably the 2 easiest ways. I'm on Facebook. I'm on, all the social medias. But just as my name, Daron Campbell. And you can find me like that, and you can follow me, or you can inquire about investing with us. We allow people to join in on the fun. And then from time to time, I do seminars, and got about 6 books I've written. And, I like helping people see behind the curtain. I look at myself as a bit of a real estate rebel. I know all these wealthy people, many of whom don't look like me, many of whom, never saw me coming. But what I want to do is I want to give people a peek behind the curtain so they can see how real wealth is made. So funny. Grant Cardone, I just saw a post by Grant Cardone, who's heavy into real estate investing these days. And he said on this little post, last year I paid no personal income tax. Now, people are sitting back going, how did this guy make $37 million and pay no income tax? Well, guess what? The government gives you opportunities to not pay income tax when you own a particular amount of real estate. And so it's like, you might go, well, how do the rich keep getting richer? Well, the system is set up for you to win. You just got to be educated about how to do it. I know a guy whose name I can't mention. He owns 1,200 apartments, wow, and he pays not $1 in income tax. So you could be mad at the system, you could hate it, you could say it's not fair, but what you really need to do is take advantage. What you really need to do is, if you can't beat them, you freaking join them. You usually want to be one of those people that pays no taxes, and there are ways to do it. You just got to learn. So I'm into teaching people who might not otherwise know.
Love it. Well, Daron, appreciate you coming on the show. I'm inspired. I'm energized. So I know the listeners will gain a whole lot out of it. Really, really appreciate you taking some time today to get on the show.
It was my pleasure. I'll come back anytime.
Definitely.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue Podcast. Don't forget, leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to this. If you're on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. Appreciate your support. And I look forward to hearing from you all soon.
Hi, everyone. Sam here from Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button, and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.